My name is Sholeh Wolpe, and I'm the editor of the Forbidden Poems from Iran and its Exiles. I initially put this collection together, partial collection together for the Atlanta Review, and it was the issue was dedicated to Iran, and it became the magazine's best-selling issue ever. And after that, I was approached by Michigan State University to expand the anthology. And of course, I was very happy to do that because I truly believe that work in translation is very important. Literature from the countries that are often misunderstood because of their politics is very, very important. And the result of that was this beautiful collection of poetry by Iranian poets, young and old, ancient and modern, very well published or hardly published at all. I wanted the collection to read well from the beginning to the end, like a book. So I didn't want it to be of course you do, I mean, if you pick it up to any poem, it's still very enjoyable. But I wanted there to be a thread from the beginning to the end. So I arranged the poems in groups, and the collection begins sort of very dark, and it ends with light. And as a result, I also didn't want to necessarily use poets who are very well known or very well published. I wanted to also showcase very young Iranian writers who, some of them weren't even born in Iran, but still were raised within this subculture here that we call the American Iranian culture. So I wanted all of that represented in there. And the other thing that was very, very important to me is that it seems that we human beings view each other through the lens of politics, often through the lens of media, through the lens of politics. And we rarely get a chance to really see each other as human beings. And I think literature does that, and I wanted to have that in this collection. And I wanted the poems to be accessible and beautifully translated. So being a literary translator, I translated a lot of them or co-translated them myself, but I also used some wonderful translators who are beginning to translate poetry or have been doing this for quite some time.
You know, I think translating is such a tricky process because you want to make sure that you retain, you know, the complete meaning of the original language and, you know, the context that can sometimes get lost if a translation isn't done well. Did you go to extra lengths to make sure that that context remained? Can you talk about that process of translating?
The process of translating. Well, for me, translation of poetry is very, very important because I believe that if you're going to kill the work in the new language, for me, it's better if it's not translated or if it's translated only in a scholarly setting where the university people could just use the meaning. But if you're presenting poetry to the public, then those translations should be read as poetry. And they should not compromise the meaning of the poems as well. So it's a very difficult thing. One thing that's really beautiful right now that's happening within the American Iranian culture is that there are a group of us who know the language quite well and who are writing in English. And I think that allows us to do this translation well. But there are not very many translators of poetry, and that's why I had to do a lot of them myself or co-translate them. I love all of them. I love everything that's in here. Each one of these poems really speaks to me in a different way. I do very much like Mohsen Ahmadi's The Poem. I love I love the poems by Reza Barahani. I included a few of them only because they speak to imprisonment during the Shah's time, something that we seem to have forgotten. I love Granaz Musavi. I don't know. I love a lot of them. I love I See the Sea by Shams Langrudi. It's a very beautiful melodic poem. I've included works by Farooq Farrokhzad, by Rumi even, you know. But I love all of them. I think each of them, with every one of these poems, you sort of open a little door that eventually just leads to the bigger picture. It's just a diverse. These are diverse It's a diverse group of poets, and they complete the big picture, I think. Well, if you really think about it, what really survives in human civilization is the arts. I mean, that's really the only thing eventually what we will remember civilizations by. So I think, yes, literature is very important and it does bridge the gap between cultures and peoples of various countries, but ultimately also it identifies us as human beings. And I think literature is just very important, yes. In Iranian culture, poetry is very, very important. So even those children who were born here or grew up here in Iranian families, they've been exposed to Iranian culture, literature, poetry. Unfortunately, the presentations like the reality television you just mentioned, it's such an inaccurate way of representing Iranians, because if you pay attention to the plot line, it's exactly the same as any other reality television. They have the catty girls, they've got these self-involved guys. It's just, and what they're doing is they're putting one culture in this box that it should fit that way. And what's beautiful about a collection like this is that if you read it, you get a sense of who these real people are, and really the reality television shows that we see, they're not really reality, they're boxed and scripted. With this particular book of poetry, yes, please, first of all, support the art literature in translation. Less than 3% of all the books published in the United States are translations. And how are we going to get to know other cultures really through anything except their literature? So one of the important things is that please support books like this. You know, the other thing is that let us fight this sort of misrepresentations of other cultures, say misrepresentation of the Iranian culture through media and politics, because even our politicians do not represent us. You know, they represent themselves. And so a book like this would allow the reader to have a glimpse into the country and outside the country in terms of those of us who are in exile. So yes, I think this is an important book. And so please support it, read it, and contact me and let me know what you think.